Empire.
Welcome to Inside the Cap. I'm your host, Joel Corey. You can find me on Twitter at CoreyJoel. That's CorryJoel. And also read my regular CBSSports.com column, Agents Take on NFL Salary Cap and Contract Matters. We are now 1/3 of the way through the NFL season, through week 6 of the 18-week regular season. So we're going to take a look at several veteran newcomers as acquisitions either in free agency or by trade that are making good contributions for their new teams. First up is Tyree Kill. Tyree Kill was headed into the last year of a 3-year extension with the Kansas City Chiefs, and the receiver market started going haywire, so signability became an issue with him in Kansas City. In March, he was dealt to the Dolphins for 5 draft picks: 2022 first-round pick, second-round pick, fourth-round pick, and 2023 fourth and sixth-round picks. As a part of the trade, Hill received a 4-year, $120 million contract extension, on paper making him the first $30 million per year non-quarterback. There's $72.2 million in total guarantees, $52.535 million fully guaranteed at signing. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is a $25 million per year extension. $75 million over 3 years, because there's $45 million in 2026, the final contract year. Now, another team which Hill was considering was the Jets. Came down to him being traded to the Jets or the Dolphins. Big reason, he said he didn't want to go to the Jets, who actually have a better record right now than the Dolphins, 4-2 versus 3-3, is the state income tax situation. Florida, tax-free state, no state income tax. The Jets technically are called the New York Jets, but their facility is in New Jersey, so if you lived in New Jersey, state income tax rate of 10.75%, one of the highest in the nation. So one thing that you'd have to assess in a situation like that is what would be the gross amount you'd have to make in New York for the net amount to be equal. So obviously it would have been a higher deal from a gross standpoint. But nonetheless, he said recently, state income tax, one of the reasons. Now, Hill, in his 6 games with the Dolphins, has put himself in position to be a leading candidate for NFL Offensive Player of the Year. He's caught 50 passes for 701 yards, has 2 touchdowns, his 50 receptions are second in NFL. 701 receiving yards are first. And he's been doing this of a rotating cast of quarterbacks. Tua Tagovailoa, as we know, had that concussion. The one that's knocked him out the past couple of weeks looked really nasty in the Thursday night game against the Bengals. He's expected to return this week. But it's been Tua, Teddy Bridgewater, and rookie Skylar Thompson. So doesn't matter who the quarterback is. That's kind of reminiscent of what you saw with DeAndre Hopkins in a couple of his final seasons with the Houston Texans. You could trot out mediocre quarterback after mediocre quarterback, and he was still going to produce. Now, I'm not equating that cast of characters to the Dolphins cast of characters to those guys. Those guys were less heralded and less regarded. But nonetheless, doesn't matter who the quarterback is, Tyree Kill is producing. Now, he's on pace for 1,986 receiving yards. That's what he's projected to over the 17-game regular season. Remember, an extra regular season game has been added starting last year. So that would break the record if he sustains the pace Calvin Johnson set in 2012 in 16 games of 1,964 receiving yards. Now let's turn our attention to another receiver and that's A.J. Brown of the Eagles. Didn't really see this coming, and it was part of the rapidly escalating receiver market that on the middle of the first round, the Titans traded A.J. Brown to the Eagles for first and third round picks in this year's draft, in the 2022 draft. They did that as opposed to pay him. And he got a 4-year, $100 million extension with slightly over $57 million in guarantees with the trade. Now, he's made all the difference in the world to the Philadelphia offense. Jalen Hurts has taken a big step forward this year and is looking like an MVP candidate with the Browns' arrival. You could say that Brown's arrival has kind of had the same impact or similar impact that Stefan Diggs' arrival had on Josh Allen a couple of years ago when he was acquired from the Vikings. Eagles are 6-0, the league's only undefeated team. Now, A.J. Brown, 33 catches, 503 yards, 2 touchdowns in 6 games. He is 6th in the NFL with the 503 receiving yards. Now, he is on pace to easily shatter, from a receiving yard standpoint, his career best of 1,075 yards with the Titans that he had in the 2020 season. He's on pace for 1,425 receiving yards. Same thing with catches. His career high, 70 catches, same 2022 season. He's on pace for 94 receptions. So you got 2 wide receivers from teams that didn't want to pay him. With the receiver market going haywire, there were 4 wide receivers in the $20 million per year club when the offseason began. By the time the regular season started, we had 14, and that included Julio Jones getting released from the Titans in March. So receivers at the high end, moving teams, made a difference, big difference so far. Let's move on to a couple of edge rushers. Von Miller, 33 years old, left the Los Angeles Rams, who won the Super Bowl, to go to the Buffalo Bills. Was willing to give the Dallas Cowboys a hometown discount to go back to Texas, where he's from, but they don't need him. They got a great pass rush. In Buffalo, he's helped transform an already very good team to a favorite in the AFC to get to the Super Bowl. Their 33-year-old has 6 sacks so far this year, which is tied for second in NFL. He's got 26 quarterback pressures. By quarterback pressures, I mean combined quarterback hits, quarterback hurries, and sacks. That 26 is 5th in the league. He signed a 6-year, $120 million contract with $51.435 million in guarantees. $45 million is fully guaranteed. The $120 million is just for cosmetic purposes. He's not going to play the latter part of the deal. This was, to me, just so he could say he signed a bigger contract than what he signed as a franchise player with the Denver Broncos in 2016, when that was a contract which averaged $19,183,333, which made him at the time the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. This one, $20 million per year average. Realistically, it's $70 million over 4 years for $17.5 million a year. Now, the reason that I say that is he's got $50 million in the last 2 years, and there's $30 million in 2027. So he's not going to complete this contract like he did the last one. The Los Angeles Chargers decided their window is now this year, and one thing that you should do as a team is when you have a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback on a rookie contract, that's your one time where you can amass talent while the quarterback is cheap. Justin Herbert is in the third year of his contract, will be eligible for a contract extension after the season. Cap number for 2023 will still be low. 2025 is when the cap number will probably start to rise, but still be somewhat manageable. But after that, you can forget it because Herbert's probably going to be a $50 million per year quarterback. Now, the Chargers are 4-2, haven't played their best football yet, but they brought in a bunch of guys through trade and through free agency after barely missing the playoffs last year. Mack was acquired from a rebuilding Chicago Bears team for a 2022 second-round pick and a 2023 sixth-round pick. He only played 7 games last year because of a left foot injury that required surgery and kept him out for most of the year. But doesn't look like he's ever had surgery because he's tied for second along with Von Miller and a couple other people with 6 sacks, and he's got 22 quarterback pressures. Zadarius Smith is an interesting case. Smith was a salary cap casualty by the Packers in the offseason. He only played 2 games in 2021, regular season opener, then had back surgery and came back for the playoffs. He spurned the team that drafted him, the Baltimore Ravens, for the Vikings. During that 48-hour window before free agency starts, Smith had agreed to a 4-year, $35 million contract worth up to $50 million through performance bonuses, incentive salary escalators. Didn't sign it. This happens occasionally in free agency, that a guy will change his mind because it's a verbal agreement which is not enforceable, never put pen to paper. It goes to the Vikings on a deal which is on paper $42 million over 3 years. Maxes out at $44 million through incentives. He's got sack incentives in 22 and 2023 of $1 million in each of those years, where he gets $500,000 for 8.5 sacks, or $750,000 for 10.5 sacks, or $1 million for 12.5 sacks. Now it's really $22 million over 2 years. There's $20 million in the last year, so good luck with that. Now, Smith looks like he did in particularly that first year in Green Bay, where he and Preston Smith were probably combined the best free agent acquisition as the Smith brothers. He's got 5.5 sacks, which is tied for 9th in NFL, but he's third in quarterback pressures with 29. And the Vikings are 5-1. Let's move over to the defending champion Rams. Now, once Von Miller decided to go to the Bills, the Rams turned their attention to what some people thought wasn't a need position and signed Bobby Wagner. Wagner was released on the same day the trade for Russell Wilson was announced, before it was consummated. Could be consummated on the first day of the league year. He was released by the Seahawks rather than pay him $16.6 million this year on a $20.35 million cap hit. He's 32 years old, but 2021 he had a career high 170 tackles while earning his 8th Pro Bowl selection and 2nd team All-Pro honors. He's a Southern California native from Ontario, California. Wanted to come back home. Goes to the Rams on a 5-year, $50 million contract worth up to $65 million through incentives. Some people will say Wagner's best hit this year, and I'm saying this jokingly, was when he laid out the protester was running around the field a couple of weeks ago on Monday Night Football when the Rams lost to the 49ers. Now, Wagner is still looking like Bobby Wagner. If you put any stock in Pro Football Focus's grades, Wagner is the number one, has the top grade of any off-ball linebacker for 2022. And they classify Michael Parsons as an edge rusher, otherwise he'd be number one. He's missed one tackle all year. Last year, the Rams had the number one run defense by Pro Football Focus metrics, and they still have the number one run defense this year. They're sixth in total defense this year, giving up 301.3 yards per game, which is an improvement over last year when they gave up 344.9 yards per game. Now, let's turn our attention to a couple of more Philadelphia Eagles, but this time on the defensive side of the ball. Part of the reason that Philadelphia is 6-0 is not only did they go out and get that wide receiver for Jalen Hurts, who's taken a big step forward in year 3, they made some defensive moves as well. A few days after the draft, one team's trash became another team's treasure. The New York Giants had to release James Bradberry because of cap issues. He was a salary cap casualty. They tried to trade him, couldn't find any takers. He was in the final year of a 3-year, $43.5 million contract, averaging $14.5 million per year. He goes to the Philadelphia Eagles on a 1-year deal for base value of $7.25 million. Maxes out at $10 million through incentives. And this is a little bit of a pay cut for him because he was supposed to make $13.5 this year. So pretty substantial, not a little bit, pretty substantial haircut. But Bradberry has helped the Eagles have arguably the best cornerback tandem in the NFL, paired with Darius Slay. Throw at him at your own peril this year. Opposing quarterbacks has completed 17 of 41 passes against him. It's 41.5% completion percentage. Hasn't given up a TD, has 2 interceptions. That passer rating when you throw against him is 32.4. So Bradberry is trying to put himself in a really good position in free agency. The only problem is he's going to be 30 next August. So are you going to pay a 30-year-old cornerback, and for how long? We saw that Stefan Gilmore, who's a little bit older, a couple years removed from Defensive Player of the Year honors, kind of languished out there for a little while before signing for, I think, like 2 years at $11.5 million per year. Hold on a second, I'll look that up. But nonetheless, that Bradberry paying huge dividends for the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the 1972 Dolphins are like, can you guys please lose sometime soon so we can pop the champagne, popping bottles? Actually, that was for Gilmore, it's 32, a couple years older. $20 million over 2 years, maxes out at $23 million of incentives. Bradberry's deal averaged $14.5 million per year, so he probably doesn't think he warrants a pay cut. Probably thinks he deserves a raise based on how he's played. Now, not only did the Eagles make a pickup in the secondary when free agency started, they added to the pass rush by signing Hassan Reddick, who gets to go back to Philadelphia. He played his college ball at Temple under recently fired Panthers coach Matt Rule. And it seems like no matter what uniform you put Reddick in, he's going to get to the quarterback. In 2020, when they finally figured out that he was not an off-ball linebacker and decided, hey, he's a pass rusher when Chandler Jones got hurt, he tied for 4th in the NFL of 12.5 sacks. Now, free agency didn't pay off for him the way one might expect after a 12.5 sack year, but it was coming off of previous years where he was looking more like a bust as a first-round pick than anything else. Took a 1-year, $6 million deal worth up to $8 million in incentives to reunite with Matt Rule in Carolina. Last season, had 11 sacks, so You do it back-to-back years, double-digit sacks, not a fluke anymore. Goes to the Eagles on a 3-year, $45 million contract that has $30 million fully guaranteed. $46.5 million is what the deal maxes out at because of incentives and salary escalators. Now, he was named Week 4's NFC Defensive Player of the Week. He's got 4.5 sacks this year and has 5 combined forced fumbles and fumble recoveries, which leads the NFL. He's tied for second. He's second with 3 forced fumbles and tied for second with 2 fumble recoveries. So, wonder why the Eagles are 6-0? Let's see. Let's go out and get a number 1 receiver when we didn't have one in A.J. Brown. Let's add another pass rusher to the mix. Let's get a second corner to go with our all-pro corner on the other side to give us a great tandem. Let's also, in preseason, bring in a slot corner safety, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and there you go. Voila, 6-0. Last guy to talk about is Charvis Ward for the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners, when healthy, have the best defense in the NFL. It ain't healthy. Nick Bosa, groin injuries, missed a couple of games. Jimmy Ward, broken hand. He's out. Javon Kinlaw on IR, defensive tackle. Corner, Manuel Mosley on IR. Defensive lineman Eric Armstead, he's out as well for several weeks. Ward came in on a 3-year, $40.5 million contract to shore up the secondary. $26.62 million of guarantees, $42 million max total through incentives. He's done what he's supposed to do with this team. Opponents have targeted him 27 times, completed 14 passes, completion percentage of 51.9% for a 69.7 passer rating. So these are the guys that I wanted to spotlight that switch teams as veterans either through free agency or through trade that have held up their end of the bargain. Their teams have got to be very happy with them. So that's going to be it for this week's Inside the Cap. Don't forget, you can find me on Twitter at Corey Joel. That's CORRYJOEL. And also read my regular CBSSports.com column, Agent's Take, also on NFL Salary Cap and Contract Matters. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.